I've gone so long in my life experiencing endometriosis symptoms without having a diagnosis because all of my doctors would just tell me like, okay, well, your normal is having a really rough period, and the medications weren't working to alleviate my pain. I just kind of brushed it off under the rug, like, okay, well, then I just have to deal with it. Hello, friends. Today I wanted to come on and talk a little bit more about, I think, endometriosis awareness and holistic health awareness, because it's something that I feel so strongly about, and it's been a big part of my life for so long, like without even realizing it. So I remember back in 7th grade, I always had really bad cramps. It would keep me from going to school from time to time. That got progressively worse as I got older, but I bled so much that one time I had a sleepover at my house with girls in my grade, and I had gotten my period, and it was really debilitating. Like, my cramps were hurting me really bad. So I had gone and taken a shower, and the girls had come into the bathroom after I had gotten in the shower, and I forgot to flush the toilet, and they had seen the blood that was in the toilet, and I remember hearing them laughing and making fun of me outside of the shower. And I realized what had happened when I had gotten out and was just completely mortified. But I think it was like literally bleeding through every pair of pants I would wear in 7th grade. That kind of made me feel like, this isn't normal. As I got into high school, I would bleed through just like the most product I could be using. It was embarrassing, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I didn't really feel like, it wasn't something I wanted to talk to my parents about. That was really, when I was 15, I was put on birth control. Nothing to do with my periods, but it did help a little bit with my period symptoms, but I did have a lot of complications on birth control. My mental state was absolutely treacherous, and I was nauseous all the time. Like, I was so nauseous. They were giving me pills to help with the nausea that they give to cancer patients during chemotherapy. And to me, that was like, I'm holistic. I've gone through a complete holistic journey healing my mental health and my thyroid. So birth control was definitely something that I wanted to get off of, and I was able to do that once I was in college, and that helped me tremendously in my mental state. So I just really wasn't reacting well to that, and in a routine appointment with my OBGYN, I just mentioned my mental health state at that point, and she had at that time given me a genetic test and diagnosed me with a genetic mutation called MTHFR, and it's not something that's super familiarized, but it is something that is very common in the general population. They say about 60% of the population has one of the genes for MTHFR, and I'm not a doctor, but basically my understanding of MTHFR is it affects the way that your body produces and receives certain vitamins that control certain bodily functions. So this process is called the methylation process, and it can be supported with a series of vitamins. And because my body was deficient in certain vitamins, my body wasn't making or receiving serotonin. So I was in a whole wonky mental state there for a minute, and we got me on a vitamin regimen that was able to help me out there, and that helped for a while, but I was still experiencing some, weird things. And so I sought out a therapist who specialized in the mutation, and that was like my absolute best bet there, because I found someone who specializes in psychotherapy, which is different from traditional therapy because they help you get to the root of underlying childhood traumas, and it's a trauma-based approach, which is super important, and that was a huge part of my journey. But we also aligned very much on a spiritual level. So she kind of awakened me to this whole idea of a spiritual awakening, being a light worker, a starseed child, and helped me to understand my role here on earth in the universe and really connect with this sense of spirituality within myself that I've never had before. So that definitely comes into play in my journey. I've gone so long in my life experiencing endometriosis symptoms without having a diagnosis because all of my doctors would just tell me like, okay, well, your normal is having a really rough period. The medications weren't working to alleviate my pain. I just kind of brushed it off under the rug, like, okay, well, then I just have to deal with it. I've done so much research on endometriosis, and all of the advocates for endometriosis will tell you that it is not normal to have painful periods. And now I'm 24 years old. I'll be 25 this November. And I started noticing my symptoms getting worse when it came to nausea. So I was experiencing nausea once a month. It would just debilitating nausea would wake me up in the middle of the night once a month, every single month. And for a long time, a couple of months, I thought it was that I was getting food poisoning. And I was so irritated and annoyed. Like, why am I getting food poisoning every single month? Is my immune system seriously that low that something I'm eating is triggering food poisoning once a month? Like, what the is going on? I'm eliminating all these foods and still getting nauseous. It was super weird. I couldn't find any like underlying patterns with it. And so I went and I sought out a doctor, but I wanted to seek out a doctor who was going to listen to me. I've had a lot of really rough experiences with doctors just kind of brushing me under the rug, and I didn't want that experience again. I wanted someone who focused in Western medicine and in a holistic approach. And I found a doctor who specializes in integrative medicine near me, and my insurance was accepted there. And so I made an appointment, and I literally had 45 minutes to an hour long sitting in a room with this woman, where this is my folder of my track record of everything that I've gone through in the last 5 years. It's 1.5 inches thick, you guys, like just to get my health under control and in order and figure out what's going on. I've got every single lab I've ever done, all my genetic test results in there. So we literally sat down and we traced back everything in this book of documents. And I really appreciated that she took the time to do that. And she asked me if anybody had ever ordered an ultrasound for me. She did a lab panel and that all came back mostly normal. But then she asked me if anyone had ever ordered an ultrasound on me, and I had said, you know what? No. Of all the doctors I've seen, nobody's ever gone as far as to order me an ultrasound. So she said, okay, well, you know, it can't hurt to look, you know. It makes no sense to me because why wouldn't you just look, you know? If I'm going to pay you to look inside of my body, why wouldn't you just order the test? I don't get it. So I finally found a doctor who would order the test for me, and we did the ultrasound, and that came back. They told me it was mostly normal, but my endometrial layer was thick, like unusually thick, and I was happy that came up because I had the scan done a day before my period, and that was like, okay, this is when I'm experiencing my symptoms, so let's do the scan now. Yes. Like, I'm getting closer to my answer. Yay. So that was enough for my doctors to say, okay, well, this is kind of an abnormal ultrasound, so let's refer you out to an OBGYN. I had done a lot of research. I knew that diagnosing endometriosis at this point would be done through surgery, so I was kind of preparing myself for that. It's so weird the way that the universe speaks, because I, for one, was really, really, really apprehensive about having a male doctor. It's new, it's unfamiliar, and I don't know, it just felt kind of icky for me. And then I started doing some research on this doctor, and not only does he have amazing reviews, but when I saw a picture of him, I knew almost immediately that it was a sign from my grandmother in spirit that this was the next path to take. My grandma's favorite singer ever was Rod Stewart, and I mean, I'm seeing 1111 right now. He looks like Rod Stewart. It's the funniest thing in the world, I swear. It's hilarious. But it made me laugh in that moment, like, okay, I see you, Grandma, thank you for, because I've done my meditation and done my prayer practice, and I've asked her for guidance as far as my health goes. So I knew I was receiving a message that I was on the right path. And right before my appointment, I was like, okay, just surrender, and just trust that this doctor is the next step on your healing journey. And I looked down and it was 123. And if you know anything about repeating numbers and synchronicities, 1, 2, 3 is this sequential number sequence, right? So it's step 1, step 2, step 3. So to me, immediately that note was like, you're on the right path. Like, this is your journey. You're taking the steps forward to your ultimate higher healing journey. So that felt incredibly empowering to me. And I went and I met with this doctor, and he listened to me. And that was huge. He listened to me and said, it sounds like you might have symptoms of what we call endometriosis. And I said, I'm worried about that too. That's actually, so my boyfriend and I, well, fiance now, and I have been putting the symptoms all together, and we started noticing a pattern that the nausea was happening the first couple of days of my menstrual cycle every single month. And along with that nausea, I experienced debilitating cramps. They are so bad, they have me keeled over. I can't even lay back because I'm nauseous, and my back hurts. I can't sit down. I can't go to the bathroom. I get really bad headaches. My whole body just starts to like tense up, and I get fevers. It's really, really an awful time. It forces me to take like a week off of work every single time. And so, like, if you think about it, that's a quarter of my life that I spend just lounging around, just trying to not be in pain. It sucks. Like, there's a whole mental side of it too. Last time I had said, I'm gonna do the dishes tonight, don't worry, I'm gonna do the dishes, I'm gonna finish this task, and then I got my period. And I was in so much pain, like there was no way I could get any of that done. And I felt like a failure because it's like I couldn't even get the simple tasks done that I needed to get done. And I felt like I couldn't even hold up my end of the bargain. I'm just tired of having to nail on people because of my period. I remember I started my corporate job with Chevrolet, and then the next week I started my period on my way to work, and I was in so much pain I had to go home. And I remember being so embarrassed, like, who the am I to have to go home and use a vacation day 1 week into my job? Like, how does that look on me, you know? So it's been a lot of learning how to care and be compassionate for myself. Like, I'm incredibly grateful that now I work from home and I work for myself, so I'm able to take the time when I need to do that. But when I first found out, he mentioned that we could do a surgery to diagnose endometriosis, and he said we could run some other tests, but this would be the most effective way to just get in there, diagnose it, figure out what it is, and treat it for what it is. I had kind of mentally prepared myself for that going into the appointment. I knew what to expect, that I would be leaving there with surgery in mind. I didn't realize I'd be leaving there with a surgery scheduled, but that was kind of cool. I'm happy that we're getting it over with sooner than later, because after that I kind of went through this stage of just complete phobia. I'm terrible with needles, I'm terrible with hospitals and medical stuff. I can't even listen to other people's stories because it makes me cringe. I would literally throw up listening to somebody talk to me about their surgery in the past. But it's brought up a lot of old trauma and inner work that needs to be done, and so for that I'm incredibly grateful. I was actually feeling so anxious about it the first few days that I was feeling nauseous, not nauseous like I do with my symptoms, but just a general like anxious, nauseous feeling, and I know the difference between them, right? So I one thing I've been learning to do more is confide in my partner about my feelings and how I'm feeling in the moment. And so I was just expressing my fears to Cody, and he, was telling me his experiences with surgeries and all that kind of stuff. So just trying to help alleviate my fears. And I was telling him, well, it's really more about, for me, it's more about like waking up in pain and the IV, right? So that was what it was for me when I first found out. And I had thought, maybe I should go see my therapist. Her name's Tammy. Maybe I should go see Tammy and work through some things. And I thought, well, no, what would Tammy tell me to do? And we worked through this process called the presence process. So I went presence process, presence process, presence process. So I sat in and I did some work with the presence process, and that actually really helped me get grounded and work through the immediate reaction to fear and start being able to respond to it in a really helpful and proper way. So then I brought it up to Cody again, and he said, well, have you thought about going to see Tammy? And I said, that's so funny you say that, because actually I have. One of my New Year's resolutions this year was that Cody's my divine messenger. And so I kind of laughed. I said, okay, that's my sign. I made an appointment with Tammy, and I'm so excited because I went in there and I started explaining to her everything that was going on. And we actually went a whole lot deeper. She started asking me questions about womb work, and this kind of stuff's been coming up for me a lot lately. I've been working with a lot of clients who work in femininity and womb work and womb healing and doulas and just all this work that's making me question and sit in with my own divine femininity. And I told her about my experience. I did a salt soak in a sensory deprivation tank a couple weeks ago, and it helped me really connect with my sense of self and my womb even. That was a really strange experience, but super empowering. And from there I started telling her about some other things. So I had an ovarian cyst a few years ago, and that came up after a breathwork session that we did. So we started pinpointing a timeline of symptoms and things that happened in my life, and it was super weird because when I went back in my journals, I noticed that somebody I knew, and you can see how much emotion this brings up for me just super organically, but somebody I knew had a miscarriage, and I don't know what and why. I felt so just deeply connected to her in that time. So much so that the crystals I were meditating with split in half. And I resonate so deeply, and I feel just such a complete, utter sense of sadness when I hear stories about miscarriage and loss of children. And a week after that, I had this 10-day span of just unexplained bleeding for no reason. And I wasn't supposed to be on my period or anything. So much so that I took a pregnancy test and I thought I might have had a miscarriage, but it was nothing like that. It was just, I couldn't even explain it. I even wrote in my journal, I think something's wrong, but I'm scared to go to the doctor and find out, because at the time I really didn't have a doctor that I trusted and could confide in. So I was super scared about that. But my therapist said, well, it sounds like you have some past life stuff here. And we started uncovering a lot of different things, and so we are going to do a breathwork session and a past life session together and get to the root of that. And I think I'm going to make another video on my experience with that. But she just said to me, how do you know it's your physical body and not your energetic body? And I just laughed. I'm like, it's so funny that you say that, because I know that it's both. I know that I have endometriosis, and I know that I need to overcome my fear of having this surgery done and get to the bottom of what's going on in my health and experience this scary thing for the first time, and then continue on my holistic healing journey. But I also know that I'll be stuck back in the same cycle again if I don't address the energetic body that surrounds this as well. And so that's where I'm seeking guidance to help me with this energetic body work. And it's been surfacing up a lot for me lately. It's root chakra work, right? And a lot of things have been coming up for me, memories and just different feelings. So I'll have this like nagging kind of crying voice in my head sometimes. And it reminds me of Nora Montgomery in American Horror Story season 1. Like that's literally the sound I hear in my head. Like she's just hysterically lost, walking around trying to find her baby that was taken from her so brutally. And I remembered a couple other like miscarriage stories that hit super home for me. And like to my knowledge, I've never been pregnant or had a miscarriage, so I don't know. Like that's what I mean. I don't know why that hits hard for me. I just don't know. I really have no idea what that's about. And I remembered being 4 years old, and my dad took me to a cemetery. I don't remember why we were there in the first place, but something about that trip had made him tell me that he had a sister when he was young, and his baby sister died during childbirth. The umbilical cord wrapped around her neck during childbirth, and she passed away. And I completely blocked that entire memory out of my head. But after I left that appointment, I was walking and it just stopped me in my tracks because I remember that moment being a kid. I remember being this tiny little girl sitting in my bed, this 4-year-old little girl with my face in my hands, crying hysterically. I remember my mom opening the door and saying, like, what's wrong? And I told her, and she was like, but why are you crying? Like, you never knew her, and she died so many years ago. And I remember, like, not knowing why it hurt me, and I felt it so much, but just being like, but she was just a baby. So something's there for sure. There was some past life something, and I'm eager for my appointment to figure that out. Figure out what that is all about, the past life stuff and the energetic body. But I do know from my experience in spirituality that when you have blocks in your chakras and you keep blocking them more and blocking, and we don't work on clearing these energetic centers, and we don't move through and do the inner work that we need to do to get through these experiences, that can cause physical ailments like endometriosis, like thyroid disorder, like indigestion, constipation, digestive issues, you name it. It can cause ailments in the areas of the chakra centers. So I'm not surprised that there are ailments in the root and sacral chakra centers, because there's definitely some blockages there that I've carried with me through all of my life cycles. And I truly believe that I was put here on this earth to break that pattern in this life cycle. And what's been incredibly powerful in this whole experience is that it's brought me back to remember how much I've wanted to have a child of my own my entire life up until recently. And fear drove that recent decision to not want to have kids of my own. And this whole thing has brought up a lot of questioning. Do I want kids of my own? Would I be able to successfully carry a child of my own? Knowing how much past life stuff is there, I feel like I was put here on this planet to break that cycle, whatever that looks like, and to successfully bring a child into this world. And that's going to help me get to my next level of ascension, right? So leaning into that fear, because it's a debilitating fear. And it's funny that fear kind of plays in with the root chakra as well. facing our fears is something that can help us get and open the root chakra. So the last part of facing my fears for this surgery was going to my appointment today and asking my doctor questions that I had around the procedure. And that just took everything else away, all the fear. Like, I have now left a healthy bit of nervousness, which is normal for anyone going under any kind of procedure, big or small. It's good to have a healthy amount of nerves, but not a debilitating phobia, right? So I'm glad that I've been able to do a lot of inner work with that before, and now I'm in a place emotionally where I feel just completely stable and ready to take the next step on this journey. And I'm so ready to not be in pain anymore. And I'm so ready to face this fear. And I know that even healing is going to be a spiritual journey. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm going to, I think, get myself some spiritual tools to help me through that time. So now I'm just excited. Now I'm just excited to have answers and get to the next step. So it's been a long journey putting everything together. But I'm so glad that it is coming together, you know, and it's all in like divine timing as well. So I couldn't be more grateful. I can't wait to keep you updated on my journey as this progresses. And if you are experiencing anything similar, I send you love, support. I'm holding space for you, and I'm sending you positive and loving, healing energy. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to show your support. I'll be back next week with more videos. I love you guys.